Hey everybody, Kate Payne here from Standing Out Online, and welcome back to my Coffee with Kate show. I'm here with my guest and friend Betsy Clark from Coach to Strengths. Hey Betsy,
Woohoo!
this is take two, everybody. For some reason, when I checked 15 minutes ago, my LinkedIn was connected to my StreamYard, and then magically it went poof and was not. So here we are now, and I hope everybody is joining us on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And I am super excited to have Betsy here today. We are going to be talking about your mindset today. So let me do a little bit of an introduction for you, Betsy. Um, you probably need none because a lot of the people who are going to be watching already know you. But Betsy refers to herself, and I love this, as a mindset chaplain and also a transformation partner. So versus a transformation coach. And so I think it's really important as business owners, especially women business owners, um, that we really take a look at our mindset and what it means. And I think in this day and age, we're always hearing about mindset, and we're hearing about it in so many different ways. And I'd like to sort of pass that to you, Betsy, to talk about when we talk about mindset, what are we really thinking about? What is it that you're working on with people?
Thank you, Kate. It's fun to be here with you. Everybody and their cousin is a mindset something, right?
Yes.
Well, there's a reason for that because your mindset matters and it's so simplistic and so complicated. And I like to simplify it in the fact that what have you set your mind to?
Right.
I mean, it's that simple. And so are we focusing on the limiting beliefs and the conditioning that we've had our whole life? Or are we updating our operating system? You and I would not be using an operating system in our computers from 1992,
Right.
right?
Correct. Yep.
But most of us are still operating from the original operating system we developed when we were between 5 and 8 years old.
Yeah. Conditioning. Right.
It's conditioning, living someone else's answers for your life. And
Okay.
so it's time now to take ownership of the things that you set your mind to. Did some loving aunt grab your cheek and say, you're just like your uncle. You're always going to be an artist. And inside you're going, I want to be a race car driver. I don't want to be I don't want to be an artist.
Right.
But because that was someone of influence who mattered to us, we believe them. Oh, they know more about me than I know about myself.
Right.
And
Well, that,
so
sorry.
go ahead. No, go
No, I was
ahead.
going to say that's a nice segue into, I think, because you just used that example with the race car driver. I also wanted you to share a little bit more about how you got into this. So, this is a segue into like you were an interior decorator, for years before you do what you do now. So, staying on that same theme about like what you might have thought you were going to be doing and what you ended up doing, kind of go with that. And because I love how you talk about how you are as an interior decorator and how you do use that now.
Okay, so I was very artistic as a young kid. So I was going to be an artist and I was going to get my degree in art. And my sophomore year in college, my pottery professor said, "You don't have what it takes to be an artist." And so I've earned the right to say I want to be a race car driver, not an artist. Different scenario.
Yeah, right.
So I majored in something else. And my husband and I have done specialty wood and paint finishes for decades. We started doing faux finishing when everyone was still calling them fox finishing, doing the marbleizing on walls and ceilings and all of that sort of stuff. And I was riding my bike and I went over the handlebars and I broke my teeth and my hand and I got a really bad concussion. So I had to have surgery. But, being involved with my husband, not only in relationship, but in business, I wanted to complete my commitment to him. And so I had to help him finish a stairwell in a school. And so I'm on a scaffolding that's 2 stories high. And I'm very right-handed. I'm blending the colors of the paint from the wall to the ceiling, and it's seamless and it's beautiful. And I'm clumsy because I've got a big cast on my hand and I dropped my chip brush. So I have to schlep down this 2-story scaffolding, get back up, and I got such vertigo. And I'm
Ooh.
thinking, ooh, this is not smart. What I can't put all of our eggs in one basket. I've got to diversify and do something else. I may have had a concussion, but could still use 50-cent words. And so I decided to go. I'm going to tell a little bit more of this story because this is about what
Well, you've got a
powerful.
lot of people listening. We got Kathy Peak and Laura Heiserman are listening, and they're going, ouch.
Ouch. Hi, ladies. And so here's the thing is, I was going, I don't know what the next step is for me, but I've been a coach my whole life, and I was coaching field hockey at a private school down here. And I was on a walk with my best friend who knew me well. And this is what powerful questions and community can do for us. We were never designed to do this alone. And she said, Bets, what's your favorite nickname? Well, I'm thinking that came out of left field. What does that have to do with the price of eggs? I'm having an identity crisis. And you ask me what my nickname is? What?
Right.
So, I don't think honey bun, lover lips, sweetheart, mom, squash blossom, none of this stuff, right? The first word that came out of my mouth was coach.
Wow.
And I said, oh my word, it's like I grabbed a live wire. It's like, that's my path.
Right.
And so I actually wasn't an interior decorator. I was in interior design. I was a color coach, and I helped women stop comparing themselves to everybody else. Because what happens is when you hire an interior designer, oftentimes it's because you feel insecure. I don't know enough about color. I don't know enough to design myself out of a wet paper bag. So I'm going to get a designer to help me, which I think is really smart. Mm-hmm. But what happens is you get a designer to remodel your master bedroom and your bathroom. Then you have another designer who will do your kitchen. And then someone else does the family room. And your house looks like Donald Duck's house. There's no, integration. It just looks like a hodgepodge.
Right.
And so I would help these clients that go in and I talk about color. How are you going to use this room? Who are you going to be inviting? What time of day? What's the lighting going to be? What's the ambience? How do you want to feel? Creating a safe place, a safe haven in their home. Mm-hmm. So that was how I worked in interior design, and I expressed it with paint.
Right.
But the truth is, Kate, I'm still in interior design. Now I just use words.
I love that. When you and I met a couple weeks ago and you said that, I was just like, that is such a great little personal story nugget. Like, everybody, some of you who have tuned in have heard me talk ad nauseum about using a nugget of your personal story, like in your LinkedIn profile or in your web page or something, because it's a way to help people feel relatable, to make a connection with you and feel like they can relate to you. And so I love that because it's so true. You did it with paint, and now you do it with words.
Yeah.
And I've been the beneficiary of some of that. I've been doing strengths work with Betsy over the last 2 to 3 weeks, which has been absolutely phenomenal. I was always reluctant to do something like this because years ago when I was in a leadership certification program, I did the Enneagram. And I liked it. It was interesting, but I just didn't resonate with it. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't even remember what number I am anymore because I kept wanting to be a different number.
Yeah.
But when you and I did the strengths work and we went over my 5 main strengths, it was a huge eye opener, not only into just me as who I am as an individual, but as an entrepreneur. And most importantly, how I can use those strengths in my work with my clients to get them the results I want for them. So I think it's amazing that you have that little interior design from paint to words. I think it's a gem.
Thank you. Well, and what you've said is the strengths work also works with your husband and your children and your friends and your community, because we're able to articulate what it is that we bring to the table and what we need. It changed. Can I share a personal story about my marriage?
Absolutely. And did you see what Amy says? She said strengths is the best. And Laura says strengths work with Betsy has been transformational for me.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Laura.
It's been a joy to work with these women. They're just stellar women, and they're making an impact in the world. And that's really the whole reason why I do what I do is I can't do this alone. Sorry for
Right.
can you hear the
I can
airplanes in
hear
the
the
back?
airplane, but it's not that big a deal. Don't
Okay,
worry.
I'm
The
right by the Air
F-35s
Force.
might go over here in Vermont, so who knows?
I'm
Which is
right
why
by
I'm wearing these.
yeah, I'm right by the Air Force Academy. So,
Yeah.
hi guys, thanks for doing your job. So here's something that's really interesting about strengths, because oftentimes we lead with, what's wrong with me?
Right.
What's wrong with me? How come I can never do anything right? And the truth of the matter is, there's nothing wrong with you. You
Right.
don't need to be fixed. And the big joke is the only thing that needs to be fixed are stray cats and dogs. I mean, you don't need to be fixed, Kate. We just
Yep.
need to put the mirror to your face. And so, a living example, and I have my husband's permission to tell the story, is I'm an activator. I am wicked impatient. It's like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Action is where it's at. Less talk, more action.
Right.
And so I was going to hire a coach. This was about 5 years ago. It was very expensive.
Hmm.
And so, in the past, I just go, Archie, I'm going to do this and it's going to cost this and blah, 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 and his first reaction is like, what are you doing that for? So what I realized was my husband is high in context. I'm high in activator. So he's Mr. Slow. He needs to know the history. He needs to know where I am right now. And he needs to know what's going to go on in the future. So he has a context of a timeline that I don't have.
Right.
I'm just jump, look, think, and so it's about speed.
Right.
So this time I went to him and I said, Archie, this is my path in my business, and this is where I'm stuck. This is where I am right now. This is where I think this can take me. It's going to cost me this with the ROI on this. ROI, my favorite word.
Yeah.
So I said, think about this and tell me what you think in a couple of days. Because his first reaction was always no. And I said, do you not trust me? And he was shocked. He was like, well, of course I trust you. Why would you say that? And I said, you always say no to me. So I thought, okay, I'm going to honor him and I'm going to take context and I'm going to approach it this way. Well, about, I don't know, 30 minutes later, he came back to me and he said, Bets, I think that's a great idea. I think you should hire her. How can I support you in that? I'm like, well, bam, that worked.
Look what Lisa just said. You and Elvis, Betsy, a little less conversation, a little more action.
I wish I knew the tune behind that one, but sure. Want me to play my nose? I can play my nose for you, Lisa, and you can sing the words.
Thanks for joining us, Lisa D.
But so that's the power of understanding someone's strengths, because I was able to honor and respect him. And I told that story on stage, and someone came up afterward and said, that's the most manipulative thing I've ever heard. You were working your husband. And I'm like, what?
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked. So I went home. I was really upset with that comment. And I wanted to check in and say, Archie, did you feel manipulated that I worked you? And he said, no, I actually felt respected and honored because you knew me.
Right.
And that's the power. Can you imagine, just imagine for a moment how that would change your marriage? I work with my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law. I know what their strengths are so that I can guide my kids on how to meet in the middle based on strengths, and putting the emphasis on the right syllable of what's right with their spouse as opposed to what's wrong with them.
Right.
And it's being a good mother-in-law, I think.
It is. I think it's extraordinary. I got to tell you, I've had some prospect calls over the last couple of weeks, and my conversations have been completely different.
I love. Tell me more about that. That's fun.
Well, I think mostly because I think when you just have this awareness and you know what your strengths are, and then I had that fabulous the deep dive from you on what they mean. So like you get your strengths and you read the thing, but to go through the deep dive with you to have it really explained in an intensive, probably wouldn't have meant as much. So I think just having more awareness, like, okay, positivity is one of my strengths. Then, like I'm going to do more of that. You know what I mean? But I was also think it was making me a better listener because I was just honing in on the conversation differently. I think it was a mindset shift. It was just, yeah, Yes. Oh, well, there's a nice segue. We could go into the kaleidoscope now. Do you want to switch gears and go into that? So
Yeah, but
so anyway,
complete your thought.
yeah, so anyway, it was just, I think it's making me a better listener because I'm really understanding what my strengths are, and so therefore I'm playing to those. Not that I wasn't before, but I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't
Right.
know how to define them that way. So it was tremendously helpful.
Well, and sometimes we feel boastful, like,
Right.
or like, this is what I need. I was raised not to be needy. Don't
Right.
be a pain in the butt.
Right. Same
Just
here.
just go with the flow, and your needs will get met eventually.
Right.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing: is if you can confidently own this is what I bring to the table. It's no brag, just fact. I mean, what's so interesting is the more we know about ourselves, the less we have to hustle and scurry
Correct.
for our worthiness, because it's just a knowing.
Right.
It isn't arrogance, it's a knowing. Wouldn't
Right.
it be nice to be able to settle down in a conversation, knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, what you need, so that you're present and available to those that you're in community with?
Exactly. So a moment ago, you said one of your favorite words, which is an acronym, was ROI. Explain.
So I love ROI and I love COI, because what happens when we don't understand our strengths and who we are, and really play to our brilliance,
Hmm.
we play a smaller game.
Right.
And so, and I think this really speaks to your business. I know it speaks to mine. ROI and COI. ROI is, what's the risk of invisibility?
The risk of invisibility
COI, what's
versus
the
basically we
cost?
know ROI to be a return on investment. So
Right.
just, yeah,
And COI is cost of invisibility.
invisibility. Yes.
So, we talk about COI as cost of inaction. Well, what is it costing you to not own who you are? It's not braggadocious. It's not arrogant. It's just knowing.
Hmm.
It settles down that Twitter pating of, am I enough?
Right.
Am I enough? You're smarter than you realize. You have more strength than you understand. And how can we own our power so that we can lead with power? It's power with grace.
Hmm.
It's power with grace. It's humility.
Hmm.
Humility is knowing who you are and not having to spend all their time talking about it.
You know what you're saying right now relates to when I work with my clients with their personal branding work or their LinkedIn profile or whatever. Is that's why I invite everybody to really understand what their little nugget of their personal story is, because then you're using story to help describe what you do, and you don't have to be I do this and I do that and I'm great at this and I'm great at that, because not many people feel comfortable presenting that way, and that's what people think they have to do, is to promote themselves. They have to brag, and they don't. So I think what you're talking about, I think using story, I mean, there's always a few tools, is what can help people feel more comfortable in talking about what they do and how they can help their clients.
Well, you've brought up a really interesting point. You don't feel comfortable talking about, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. Well, as the receiver, I
Right.
don't feel comfortable with that either. I just
Right.
feel like it's we're entering into this comparison game,
Yeah.
and we're comparing apples to oranges. You
Hmm.
you in your milieu are brilliant, and you know you're incomparable.
Hmm.
In my milieu, I'm incomparable because it's my experience, my spin on strengths. I'm not the only strengths coach out there. I'm not the only mindset coach out there or a mindset partner, but I guarantee no one brings mindset chaplaincy to strengths amplification
Right.
in a way that I do, because I'm me. You know,
Right. Well, that's your approach, and that's your style, and that's your niche, and that's your zone of genius.
Bingo. And here's the thing. You and I were laughing about this the other day. Everywhere you go, there you are.
So-
Right?
Sometimes, unfortunately.
Right. Don't call me on
I
those
mean,
days.
I'm sure
Don't
we
call
all
me on
feel that
those
way
days.
sometimes, but no, I'm kidding. Sorry.
But see, here's the thing is, when you enter the room, Kate, you don't know how the dynamics of the room change.
Hmm.
And you don't have any idea how the room changes when you leave.
Right.
And so we are so stinking subjective about who we are. So with your work, people, it's like, well, that's just my story. That's
Yeah.
that's ho-hum material. No, it's new, it's juicy, it's vibrant, it's the hook that attracts your clients to do work with you because it's your uniqueness.
Right. So let's take a look at sort of who's joining us right now. So we've got Lisa Danforth, we've got Kathy Peak, we've got Elizabeth Patricia Connor. Hi, Elizabeth.
I
Amy Lester and Laura Heiserman. Each one of you in your business has a specific niche thing that you do. And the way that you do that with your clients, people want to feel a connection with you. Like most of us in our business, like Kathy Peak, who's a financial advisor, people are going to want to trust her with everything that they hold dear. So when we share these components of us, when we're working with the type of people we're working with, having them understand our story, which helps them relate to us, is what builds trust.
Yes. It's so interesting. I was giving a reference for a friend about a potential client this morning before our call. And she went onto my website and read my whole story. And someone said, "Oh yeah, well before we talked, I checked your website," and I'm going, "Yeah, really?"
Yeah.
That's a cynic in me. And she said, "Yeah, I loved your story about how you squandered your inheritance." And I'm going, "Well, girl, you did read my story. I'm not proud of that,
Right.
and it makes me uniquely qualified to talk to people transparently
Hmm.
so that they can trust me. I know what it's like to have wealth. I know what it's like to not have wealth.
Hmm.
And honestly, money isn't everything. And in addition, it touches everything that is. It is
Correct.
not the most important thing. It touches everything that is. And that's a Suzanne Evans quote that changed how I showed up in business.
Well, that reminds me of the quote that you said when we were at a conference together this fall is we don't make money, we receive money.
Yes. Yes.
Another Betsy Clark-ism.
Well, you know what? I don't have any green on my fingers. I
You
don't
need to
have a
make a
little.
book of all your Betsy gems. You've got
Yeah.
so many.
Yeah.
ROI, COI,
Yeah.
the interior design with words instead of paint. I mean, that's why you're a word nerd as you
Yeah.
self-proclaim.
Yeah.
As
I
am I, but not as good as you.
I love words.
I
I think there's such power in words. And think about this, Kate. The words we use inform how we show up. So here's something that I use all the time, and it's a kaleidoscope. And so, take and many of you on the that are listening to this right now have heard this example. But the truth of the matter is when we look through a kaleidoscope and we take a mental image of this beautiful design, the mosaics, the symmetry, the color, the light, the shapes, it's just so beautiful. And you take a snapshot of that image. And then I ask you to take the end piece of this and turn it a quarter turn to the right. What happens?
The image changes. It's completely different.
The image changes. So
Right.
then what happens is, what if you turn it back and try and get the original picture that you took in your mind's eye? Well, you can't go back because the whole picture has changed. And
Right.
once it's changed, everything has changed.
Hmm.
So if we think about the words we use and how we think, what's the impact of that? So much of coaching is about reframing.
Hmm.
And so, okay, I'll use an example. I do a leadership branding exercise, which is the next step for you and me and our strengths work together.
Hmm.
And so I was always told I'm high in woo, which is winning others over. I mean, like I never
Oh,
meet a
that's what that
stranger.
stands for.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never knew. I always thought of woo woo,
Nope,
like
nope.
spiritual,
Well,
not in a bad way, but like, okay, so woo is winning others over. I didn't know
winning
that.
others over. So it's warmth, it's ice breaking. You see someone
Hmm.
trying to keep the wall up and they want to blend into the wall. They're so uncomfortable in a social situation. Well, I mean, come on. I'm just attracted to them because I want to win them over and bring them into the group and be inclusive and all that sort of stuff. Well, so here's the thing. My mother used to say, "You were such a chatterbox."
I got
Well,
that too.
Yeah. And so, we hear she wasn't trying to be mean, but it never sat well with me. Right.
Hmm.
Um, and so now I look at having done my strengths work and reframed that woo is a strength and it's a gift, it's a talent.
Right.
Now I look at it as being socially versatile.
Right.
So the energy, do I want to show up as a 6-year-old chatterbox who never shuts up and no one listens to? Or do I want to really choose my words well and meditate and chew on and own the fact that I'm socially versatile?
Hmm.
The other one is I'm high in empathy. Oh, Betsy, you're so sensitive.
Hmm.
Get a
Right.
thicker skin,
Yeah.
let it roll off your back. Well, empathy is a huge strength.
Yeah.
So now I leverage it. I can change the environment, the texture of an environment because of my heart-centered hearing.
Right.
Big difference between, oh, Betsy, you are so sensitive.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's where words matter and your mindset matter. So if you're stuck and you're not getting the results that you want to, I think you've got a 1-2 punch in Kate Payne and Betsy Clark. I mean, I'm not here to pitch my business, but you know what? Words, you have helped me so much in my LinkedIn profile to own that platform and to have fun in it. I
Hmm.
mean, you gave me some juicy words. Like one of the descriptors for me is a happy camper. And I'm like, bam, that one works.
Yes.
I leave in 45 minutes. You should see I'm dressed in all my camping gear from the waist down. I'm going off to go camp for 12 days with my husband. So I am a happy camper. And how inviting is that to have that on my business profile? Are you kidding me? But authenticity and being genuine in the marketplace is so important.
It's it's the foundation as far as I'm concerned. It
Well, it's
really
about
is. And
trust.
it is about trust and it is about authenticity. And it's, Bob Berg, who's a well-known author and art
Yep.
marketer, talks about the know, like, and trust factor. And the quote that he's famous for saying is people want to do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. Sometimes I'll get the occasional client who, when I talk about like using story in their about section, they'll say, no one cares about my story. They just want to know what I'm going to do with you or do for you. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe your industry is not going to care as much about that. However, comma, I'm talking about a nugget of your story. I'm not talking multiple paragraphs because it's going to be different. If somebody goes and looks for you online and they get all these sort of generic vanilla LinkedIn profiles or web pages or whatever, but if they see something that shares that inner piece of who you are and why you do what you do, then there's something that just goes off in the brain that says, I'm intrigued, I'm hooked,
Mhm.
I'm interested, and that is where there's opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So uh, let's shift gears here a little bit because I want to talk about more about comparison because you brought that up. But first, I'd like to put out to anybody who is watching. First of all, we thank you for being here. Trisha Turpinoff is here as well. Hello, Trisha.
Hey, TT.
Um, and so, if anybody has any questions for Betsy, please put them in the chat, and we will answer them live here. We're still going to be on for a little while longer. I'm going to hold Betsy from going off on vacation as long as I can because I'm really jealous. And well, that was very nice of you, Lisa. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate that. So if anybody has any questions for Betsy, please put them in the chat. So let's talk a little bit about the comparison piece. We talked about this when we prepped, and what you said to me yesterday is about this. This is, I think, I really want this to be a takeaway for everybody today. So talk about when you talk about comparison. What are you referring to? Set the scene for us.
So I love the Roosevelt quotes. I think they're juicy. They were wordsmiths. And Teddy Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. And one of the things that I see holding women back in business is comparison. And some people will even go so far as to call it the imposter syndrome. I think
Hmm.
they're different.
Hmm.
Um, But comparison is no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That's Eleanor Roosevelt. And so here's the deal is we give our consent when we compare the worst we know of ourselves to the best we presume of someone else.
Mm-hmm.
My friend, that's a setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
We compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reels. And I have to be
I
really
love that
honest.
you use the term highlight reels. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is such a great visual and it's so true.
Well, okay, so I'm just going to get really personal here.
Okay.
I've lost 3 friends to suicide in the last year.
Oh,
And if
sorry.
you looked on their Facebook page, and this is not a slam on Facebook, you would never have seen this coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
And
Because that's the highlight reel. We all do it.
it's the highlight reel.
Mm-hmm.
I have a new grandson, and you know what? I just show the pictures of him grinning with this little toothless grin, but I don't show the pictures of him screaming his head off when I can't settle him.
Right.
So
Right.
we don't have a real idea of what someone, we can never guess what's going on behind the scenes for someone else. And here's where it gets dangerous is when I've been an entrepreneur for 43 years. And so you compare your beginning, your fledgling idea, your beginning business with my senior successes. That's
Mm-hmm.
not fair.
Right.
It's always a setup. And, here's the thing, we assume, and here's a Betsyism, it's called Assumicide. Really, we
Mm-hmm.
shut down truth, intimacy, and connection when we make assumptions.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right.
And so, we all have our stuff. I got my stuff.
Yep.
You get your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue isn't our stuff, it's the impact. And that's why, as a coach and a partner and a chaplain, I feel like I'm very uniquely qualified to support women to move forward. Because I'm not going to go into your past. I'm not a therapist.
Right.
God love therapists. I pay handsomely for a therapist. And I'm not going to go in your past. I'm going to take you right as you are here today and meet you here and find out what do you want to see going forward. And how
Right.
can we do that in a way that's effortless, that has ease and dignity and grace based on who you are, not who I am.
Right. Betsy, we've got a really great question here from Lisa. Betsy, I completed my Clifton StrengthsFinder many years ago. Do our strengths change over the years? What an interesting question. I wondered
Yeah,
about that
that's a great
with like
question.
Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. Is that, so based specific to Clifton Strengths, how would you answer that?
Well, thank you, Lisa. Gallup suggests that you go with the original because there can be some biases in how you take the assessment, even over years later. We've taken a lot of assessments over the years and we've become a little bit more savvy. And so I trust the first take on that. Here's the thing is you have a gazillion talents. They're inherent in who you are. And that I call those your being. It's your soul, your talents. They're unexpressed strengths. So that when we put skill, knowledge, and experience on those talents, which are inherently who you are, your spiritual DNA is kind of how I look at it. And you put wheels on that through that skills, knowledge, and experience, it becomes a strength. It becomes expressed. It becomes your doing. So instead of your role or your soul, it becomes your role. So it doesn't change over time. So here's where it can get wonky because most people will just take the top 5 strengths assessment. And that's what I recommend in the beginning because it can be overwhelming if you know too much.
Right.
So let's work with the top 5 and really dial those in, and then we move on. So Lisa, to get to your point, I am a rule breaker. Oh, gee, what a shock. So
wait, what's the Home Alone? That's a real live emoji.
I know. Isn't that surprising? So what happened was I took the assessment and then I went and got certified. And so my top 5 looked different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was when I became certified, I got my full 34. So the positioning from my first assessment to my second assessment looked different. But when I looked at my top 10, it was all in there. So I didn't change.
Right.
But if I had just gone with a top 5 between those 2 assessments, it would have looked like, well, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I can't change that much. Right. You don't.
Right.
It's just a nuance of digging a little deeper. So I hope
Okay.
that answers your question, Lisa.
Thank you for that, Betsy. I've got a couple other things here. So Kathy just said Assumicide, good one. It is the death of something.
Bingo.
And our friend Terry weighed in. So thank you for being here, Terry. And Elizabeth Patricia has a question. I keep hearing about superpowers. What's your take on that? Oh, I love that one. I might even weigh in on that when you're done.
Okay, well, go first.
When I talk about superpowers, I think partly what I love about using that term is that, like, what I used to talk about, especially in the context of people talking about their skills on LinkedIn. Okay, so let's just put it in the context of like, what are your skills that you want to put out there? And we talk about skill sets, talents, being a subject matter expert, maybe even using a term that I don't love, but it's out there as thought leader. I just, these buzzwords come up in marketing and all of that's just kind of the nature of the beast. But superpowers for me felt like a visual, like, maybe for you, you might imagine, Wonder Woman, like the power pose, or person in a cape or something like that. I feel like when you say superpowers, at least for me, it's like really finding that thing that is your zone of genius. So, for me, it's helping people with their brand and their story. Like that's my zone of genius. So that's my superpower. So I just like it because I think it's interesting. I think it's appropriate, and I think it's a little fun. So it's a little playful, and I like it when you can mix those. So that's kind of my take on it. What's yours?
Well, so I'm a closet cartoonist, so I love the idea of superpower. So I'm going to put a spin on it. If you don't know if you're going to take I think of Superman, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't know what your superpowers are, you don't know what your kryptonite is.
Ooh, another good, Betsy. You need to do a book of all of these.
But that's tweetable,
Yes, it is. Almost everything you say is tweetable. And that's a compliment.
Thank you. But see, the thing is that if I see women, I don't work with men all that often, but we're so scattered. We're trying to be everything to everybody. We're supposed to be well-rounded. Like, have you ever looked at what well-rounded is? It's like us doing this. We're squeezing the life force out of those things because we don't know what to do differently.
Right, right.
But so when we take our strengths and you look at these gnarly hands, and each one of my fingers is one of your top 5 strengths, and in the day it would look more like a star. But this is where your brilliance lies. This is where your superpower is, right? So then Kate comes with her top 5, and we leverage this, or with Terry or with Trisha, or the people that I work with that are on my team. When we bring our brilliance and our superpowers together, we go like this, and it becomes like these wheels, the cogs of a wheel. We can move something bigger, and that's where the power lies. When we come in and we collaborate and we stop comparing ourselves, which leads to we stop comparing ourselves, which leads to competition. Then we got all these superheroes that are out doing great and marvelous things. Amy Cuddy has this great TED Talk, and she talks about let your body inform your mind. Well, I think that my whole quest is to marry your head, heart, and your body. Right. I think we need to take a holistic approach. So when I go and right before an interview, I mean, like Kate was going, are you going to sit like that in the interview? And I sit like this. Like I try and take up as much space as I possibly can before an interview to just inform myself that I'm large and in charge, and for the moment, because they did studies, your hormones change when you start, skulking in like this.
Right.
And
Right.
people would sit in chairs waiting for an interview, and they'd be hunched over,
And
and
they'd be
they'd be
hunched over,
over
and then they would be
their
shrinking
phones,
almost.
and you're shrinking. So that
Mhm.
gets to be the cost of invisibility of like playing a smaller game. That's why I use that phrase, because
Right.
I think it's really important. So before I did main stage for eWomenNetwork, I went into the bathroom and I did the power pose. I
I do
can't
it
kiss
too.
my ceiling. One time I did that, and this was before I numbered my papers on my speeches. It was so embarrassing. I'm in the bathroom and I go, "Whoa," and I do the power pose and I let go of the papers,
Oh
and
no.
they just went in different orders. It's like, Betsy, you're on. So I'm grabbing up my papers in the bathroom and I'm like, oh no. So here's the thing about being transparent. And I think this is what you bring to helping people in their marketing and their branding is be real. Because
Mhm.
I could have gone out and I could have faked it with those women who I was going to speak to, but you either ride it or you hide it. So
Mhm.
I walked out there and I said, well, this is going to be an interesting talk because all my papers are out of order, just like me. Well, they all laughed. And
And
while
they
they
all
were
laugh because they
laughing,
could relate because you were
they could
real.
relate. So
Right.
while they're laughing and they're nudging each other, and then I said, so tell someone, when that's happened to you. And I'm quickly scurrying. I got my papers in order.
You know who else is really good at that? Is Sandra Yancey, CEO of eWomenNetwork. She's
Yeah.
because she can go out to her conference and it's all polished and it's beautiful and it's all well produced and it's all put together and she has so many gems. But when she flubs up, she's similar that way too. And then it makes everybody in the room laugh. And I think that's why everybody respects her so much is because she makes herself accessible that way. When you're being real, people just are gonna like it's like a magnet. They're just gonna some people might not, but you know what? Then those people probably aren't the people you want in your tribe or the people you want as clients. But most people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, thank goodness somebody is being fresh and real.
Okay. So let's talk about what happened 50 minutes ago.
Okay. Oh,
You're the, you're the
when the
queen. You're
and
the
it
queen
still
of
didn't work, by the
LinkedIn.
way. I got another message. Something's wrong with LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn glitch. So we're on
Hey,
Facebook personal and Facebook business. Here we are. We got a
but
lot of people.
but here's the deal: is you could have hidden that, and then we would have lost you for the first 10 minutes. You wouldn't have been present. This is a really this might be the whole reason that we're having this conversation today.
Hmm.
There is such power in being present.
Yes.
So here's a little trick for all of you that have not gone through coach training. I throw this one in for free. It's called bracketing. And so it's sort of like bookends. So I told you I'd lost 3 friends to suicide. One of them
Hmm.
was a long drawn out. It was my best friend. And my life was a goat rodeo. And in the middle of that, we got robbed and I got shot at. And so there was a lot of stuff going on in my life. And I was feeling pretty traumatized by things that were out of my control.
Hmm.
And so here's what I do is I say, okay, I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling vulnerable. I name the emotion. And then I say, okay, I'm here right now. I have this call. My client needs me to be present. That's what I've offered that client. I can deal with that later.
Right.
I don't have to be bogged down by that in the moment. And so, that's one of the ways to be present is
Hmm.
it doesn't mean ignore what's going on. Just say, not now,
Right. Right.
later. I mean, I went and had to babysit with my grandson yesterday. I'm leaving. I got so many deadlines yesterday, and I did a Facebook Live about how to, you know, be productive and all of that sort of stuff. But you know what? When I was with my little jambone, I got to tell you, he got all of me. And
Hmm.
what happened was I came in to the rest of my night. I mean, I went to bed late. I got everything done and I did it joyfully
Hmm.
because I took time to bracket and be present. And so that's the challenge as we go into the holidays. How do you bracket and how do you stay present?
Yeah, I love that. Kathy, so going back to the power or the superhero. Kathy Peak asked, what you were saying was so good, but is Superman still Superman when he takes his cape off?
Is Superman still who is still Superman when he takes his cape off?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a good. I think he is. I
Yeah,
think
I
he
think he is.
is
I think he is too,
because
because his human piece of Clark Kent is still part of his values and who he is in his integrity.
so when I
Yeah.
look at, I wish it weren't across my office, but I use a diamond or rubies as a visual. We are multifaceted. We have multi faces. I am not the same with my friend Kate Payne as I am with my husband. You should be
Mhm.
glad for that. Don't go there. Um,
Okay.
and I'm very different with my children than I am with my grandson. But
Right.
does that mean I'm no longer Wonder Woman? Honestly, I really am very much Wonder Woman. Everyone's going, I wonder what she's going to say now. So that's why I'm always Wonder Woman.
Well, that is very true. All right, so we're kind of winding down here, and I want Betsy to get on her vacation. Does anybody else have any other questions for Betsy today? I every time I get off a call with you, whether it's personal or even this, I just feel joy because I love your perspective and your outlook. I love the way you reframe things. It's so it resonates with me. It's so interesting. It fascinates me, and it makes me think. And I think that's always a good thing.
I love that. So my question to you is, Kate, when we get off conversation, do you feel like you've married your head to your heart more than you did prior to our conversation?
Oh, oh, without question. Absolutely.
So that's
Um,
piece. It's the holistic piece. I'm not unaware of what's going on out in the real world. But the truth of the matter is, John Gordon said, what do faith and fear have in common?
mhm.
The answer is they both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's the flavor I want to leave in people's mouths right now. Control what you can control. It's the whole thing about the serenity prayer. Give us the
Mhm,
wisdom to know the difference. What can
mhm.
I control? What can I not? We all have our stuff. It's about the impact. And take control and ownership of those things that you've been handed. Those are for you to manage.
Right.
You're not going to always do it perfectly, but what if the standard is most excellent?
Mhm. Well, Kathy just asked this question, which is very relevant to what you just said. How do you deal with people who trigger you during the holidays or other triggers?
Oh, I just did a Facebook Live on my Circle of Trust Facebook page.
Okay.
I have a whole handout on 7 tips on how to handle people who trigger you. And unfortunately, I do need to leave in
Yeah. Right.
7 minutes.
Right.
So, Kate, I don't know, Kate. How do can we get that handout put out
Is
on
Kathy
things?
in your
Or
circle of trust group?
yep,
Do you know?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So Kathy, hopefully that would help you. And Lisa wants to know who said the quote you just mentioned.
What quote? It just fell
Um,
out of my mouth. I don't
it
know.
um
About faith and fear.
Perhaps.
That's
Kathy
John.
said she'll go to the group and see it there.
Okay,
Okay.
Kathy. Um,
And
that's John
so
Gordon. That's
okay.
John Gordon.
All right. And then Lisa also wants to know where you're going on vacay.
I am going to New Mexico and Arizona. We're going to wildlife refuges,
Oh,
and we're taking our dogs. I'm seeing 2 old friends that I used to do open studio with, that I used to sing with,
oh,
do
fun.
art with. We're going to go to Tucson, and we're going to just take photographs of all the animals and get lost in the desert. And
And
I've
your
been
camper.
cooking in my camper with my favorite redhead and my dogs. And I've cleaned my house within an inch of its life for the people that are staying here. So I come home to a clean house, and then I just jump right into the holidays. So life is good, and I am a most fortunate woman.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I think that's probably a wonderful way to end. And I'm trying to figure out how to get Lisa's. Where are you going on vacay? I'm trying to. There we go. Okay. little technical glitches here and there. Well, anyway, Betsy, I wish you a wonderful vacation with Archie. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. I would love to have you on again sometime.
I
I
would
just
love to
think
be
that you
on
have
again.
so many wonderful things to share, and maybe what we could do is even set up an Ask Me Anything session where we promote it
Oh,
out there so that people could show up and just ask questions about things, and we could, have a little bit of an agenda for topic. But I think sometimes people love an Ask Me Anything where they can show up. So if people think that would be a fun thing to do, maybe that's something we can do in the new year.
I'd love it, Kate. I so enjoy um, hanging with you, and I think that we bring very similar but completely different things to the marketplace. And the desire is to help build in and pour into women so that they can go out and be the leaders that they are called to be.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful point to finish on, and let's toast to that. So here we go. All
Thank you,
right,
Kate
Betsy
Payne.
Clark, thank you so much. Just stay in. I'm going to end the broadcast, but stay on so I can say goodbye.
Okie
Okay.
doke.
So thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you on the replay too. All
Enjoy
right.
the holidays.
Thank you.